Hey, hello and welcome back students. So in this video we are going to see the last year question paper of June 2024 of MEG-05 Literary Criticism and Theory. So you can see the overview from this page. You will get the time of 3 hours and maximum marks will be 100. Note, this is the important note here. Question number 1 in compulsory and others attempt any 4 of the remaining questions. Each question carries 20 marks. So it means you have to write total 5 answers and you have to write question number 1 answers compulsory. So without any further wait, let's see the question paper from here. Question number 1. Write short notes of any 2 of the following in around 200 words each. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 options. You have to do any 2 and this is compulsory. Any 2 options you can do from here. Now move to this number. Second question is, to be instructive drama cannot be scripture. Discuss with reference to Plato and Aristotle. Number 3. Access Coleridge's critique of Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction. To what exact does the poet become different from the common man? Number 4. Eliot emphasizes the relationship between sound knowledge of history and good poetry. Discuss T.S. Eliot essay to illustrate. Question number 5. Literature inevitably brings to surface the oppressive nature of structure like religion, family, and the state. How important is the writer's ideology in the context? Question number 6. Discuss some of the issues set out by feminist theories with reference to an introduction by Kamala. Question number 7. Bring out the importance of Eliot Showalter's critical model for understanding literature and society. Question number 8 here is, how is Orientalism an additional approach to the understanding of literature? Trace its origin and applicability. This is the previous year question paper of June 2024. So now if you want any other MEG and any other previous year question of another MEG, so you can comment down below. I'll find that question paper and make video for you. The answers of this question paper. So without any further wait, let's get started from here. I have wrote these answers in this sheet. So question number 1 was, write short notes of any 2 of the following in around 200 words of each. It will contain a 10 plus 10 marks. It means you have to do 2 options and 1 option will be of 10 marks. So without any further wait, I am going to cover these 5s, but you have to do any 2. Okay. So number 1. A. Literature as history. The concept of literature as history emphasizes that literature not only reflects historical events but also participates in shaping historical understanding. Literary texts often preserve the social, political, and cultural climate of their time. Writers document the lives, struggles, ideologies, and transformations of people and societies, making literature a kind of living history. For example, Charles Dickens presents the social inequalities of Victorian England, while Salman Rushdie captured post-colonial India's complex identity. These texts serve as cultural documents and express how people lived, what they believed, and how they responded to major historical events. Moreover, literature can be read as a subjective interpretation of history, offering insights that conventional historical records might omit, such as emotions, personal experiences, or marginalized voices. In modern literary theory, especially with the rise of new historicism, literature is viewed in close interaction with history. The belief is that no text is isolated, all literature is shaped by the shapes its historical context. Thus, literature is not merely a reflection of history but an active contributor to how history is remembered and reimagined. Option number B. Aristotle. Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, laid the foundation of Western literary criticism through the influence work Poetics. He studied drama, particularly tragedy, and introduced key concepts that remain essential to literary theory. One of his main contributions is the idea of mimesis or imitation. He argued that art imitates life but in a structured and meaningful way. Often to reveal deeper truths, he defined tragedy as the imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and a certain magnitude, aiming to evoke pity and fear, and to bring out a catharsis, emotional purification in the audience. Aristotle also introduces the 3 unities in drama: unity of action, time, and place. He states that a good plot should have a beginning, middle, and the end, and should follow a cause and effect sequence. He distinguished between tragedy and epic poetry and valued tragedy more for its concentrated emotional effect. Aristotle's rational analytical approach to literature contrasts with Plato, who criticized poetry. Aristotle defended literature as both instructive and pleasurable, a view that strongly influenced later thinkers like Horace, Dryden, and Sidney. In sum, Aristotle's poetics remains a cornerstone of classical literary criticism and continues to inform modern narrative analysis. Option number C. Marxist literary criticism is rooted in the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who believed that material conditions, that economic structures fundamentally shape human consequences and social institutions, including literature. According to Marxist theory, literature is not autonomous, it is produced within a socio-economic context and reflects the class structure, power dynamics, and ideologies of its time. Marxist critics analyze how literature supports or challenges dominant ideologies, especially in relation to class struggle, alienation, and capitalist exploitation. For example, Charles Dickens's novel Poetry and Working Class Suffering Under Capitalism, while Richard's play challenged capitalist ideology through epic theater. Later Marxist critics like George Locke emphasizes the concept of totality, arguing that literature should reflect the social whole. Antonio Gramsci introduces the idea of cultural hegemony, the process by which the ruling class maintains power through ideology rather than force. In contemporary criticism, Raymond Williams and Terry Angleton expanded Marxist analysis to include cultural forms and literary theory, blending it with post-structuralism concerns. Thus, Marxism provides a powerful framework of understanding literature as a product and reflection of historical materialism, often used to reveal hidden ideologies and to advocate for social change. Option number D. A Room of One's Own in 1929 is a seminal feminist text by Virginia Woolf based on a series of lectures she delivered at Cambridge. In this essay, Woolf explores the conditions necessary for women to write fiction, financial independence, and personal space, symbolized by the metaphorical room. Woolf argues that historically women have been denied education, freedom, and economic resources, which has led to their exclusion from literary traditions. She uses fictional characters like Shakespeare's sisters to illustrate how a woman to equal genius would have been suppressed by societal norms. She critiques the patriarchal literary canon where male experiences dominate and female voices are either silenced or misrepresented. Woolf also called for a new androgynous mind, a blending of masculine and feminine perspectives in creative work. The essay challenges both the material and psychological barriers that have historically prevented women from achieving literary greatness. A Room of One's Own is foundational in feminist literary criticism, inspiring later feminist scholars like Elena Showalter and Sandra Gilbert. It continues to resonate as a call of intellectual freedom and gender equality in the literary world. Option number E. Shruti in Indian aesthetics. In Indian aesthetics, the term Shruti refers to that which is heard, especially divine revelations captured in the Vedas. It holds a foundational place in Indian literary and aesthetics theory, as it is seen as eternal, authorless, and scared. Shruti differs from Smriti, which is remembered or written by human authors, while Shruti forms at the spiritual and philosophical core of Indian. It also informs aesthetics theory, particularly in Natya Shastra and Rasa theory. The Natya Shastra, attributed to Bharata, incorporates elements of Shruti in its understanding of sound, language, and performance. It suggests that the divine origin of sound contributes to the power of drama, music, and poetry to evoke rasa, aesthetics, flavor, or emotion. Shruti emphasizes the oral equality of scared and literary experiences, reinforcing the importance of oral tradition in Indian culture. Intonation and sound vibrations are not merely aesthetics, they are spiritual and philosophical tools. In summary, Shruti in Indian aesthetics underlines the belief that art is not only for pleasure but also for enlightenment, deeply connected with divine and metaphysical truths. It bridges aesthetics experience with spiritual knowledge, enriching the interpretive scope of Indian literary traditions. Now move to the question number 2. Question number 2 was, to be instructive, drama cannot be spectacular, discussed with reference to Plato and Aristotle. The statement, to be instructive, drama cannot be scripture, reflects a key debate in classical literary theory. It questions whether dramatic performance that focuses on emotion, visuals, and excitement can still deliver meaningful moral or intellectual lessons. This idea is strongly connected to the views of two Greek philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, who had very different opinions on the purpose of drama and its impact on the audience. Plato's view, drama is dangerous for the mind. Plato, in the famous book The Republic, criticizes poetry and drama, especially the kind that is emotional and entertaining. According to him, drama is a form of mimesis or imitation. It imitates the real world, which itself is an imitation of the ideal world of form. So drama is twice removed from truth. It appeals more to the emotions than to reason, which can disturb the logical thinking of individuals. Sculptured elements like music, costumes, dramatic speeches, and exciting senses stimulate emotions such as pity, fear, or laughter, but do not educate the soul. He believed that too much drama can weaken moral values, especially in the young, by showing immoral actions or glorifying tragic heroes who make bad choices. In short, Plato believed that for drama to be truly instructive, it must be serious, moral, and simple, not focus on sculpture or entertain. Aristotle responses drama can teach through emotions. Aristotle, a student of Plato, responded to his teacher's ideas in his famous work Poetics. While he agreed that drama has a strong emotional effect, he believed this is not harmful. Instead, it can be beneficial and educational, according to Aristotle. Aristotle wrote, tragedy is a serious imitation of an action meant to arouse pity and fear and led to catharsis, the purification or emotional release of these feelings. He supported the use of sculpture, visual and dramatic elements, but he did not consider it the most important part of a play. He focused more on plot, character, and theme. Aristotle argued that when we watch a tragic play, we learn about human nature, fate, choices, and morality, so it instructs us through emotions. Plays like Oedipus Rex and Sophocles are examples where sculptured tragedy also teaches deep lessons about human pride, destiny, and self-discovery. Thus, Aristotle believed that sculpture and instruction can go hand in hand if the drama is well written and meaningful. So there is a comparison of Plato versus Aristotle. This is the point of view from, and this is Plato, this is for Aristotle. Point of view of nature of drama, Plato for imitation, it's harmful, and for Aristotle, it's the same imitation, but it is for educational. Emotional impact. Plato says negative is equal to misleads people, and Aristotle positive is equal to leads to catharsis. Role of sculpture, distracting and dangerous, helpful but not central. Purpose of drama, moral instruction only, and Aristotle both instruction and emotional impact. In the conclusion, the idea that to be instructive drama cannot be sculpture reflects Plato's critical view of drama, where too much emotion and entertainment can damage moral learning. However, Aristotle offered a more balanced and realistic view, showing that drama can teach even through emotional and sculptured experiences. In modern times, most thinkers and educators support Aristotle's approach. Great plays, films, and performance often use sculptural elements, visuals, music, and emotions to deliver powerful message, so drama can be both sculptured and instructive, depending on how it's written and presented. Question number 3 is, assess Coleridge's critique of Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction. To what extent does the poet become different from the common man? Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth were both pioneers of the Romantic movement in English literature. While they collaborated on lyrical ballads in 1798, Coleridge later literally examined and partially disagreed with Wordsworth's view, especially those concerning poetic diction. His detailed critique is most notably found in his critical work Biographia Literaria in 1870. Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction. It is a preface to lyrical ballads in 1800. Wordsworth proposed revolutionary ideas. Poetry should be written in the language of everyday life, especially the language spoken by rustic people. He rejected the artificial, elevated, and ornamental diction of 18th century poetry. He believed that powerful emotions could be best expressed through simple language, and poetry should deal with ordinary experiences and universal feelings. His aim was to make poetry more democratic and accessible. Coleridge's critique of Wordsworth's view. Although Coleridge admired Wordsworth's attempt to reform poetry, he strongly disagreed with some of his claims. Number 1. Disagreement on the use of common language. Coleridge argued that the language of rustic people is limited, shaped by lack of education, and not always suitable for poetic expressions. He believed that poetry needs to be more refined, imaginative, and elevated form of language to evoke deeper emotions and meanings. According to Coleridge, poetic's language is different because it is heightened by imagination, rhythm, and meter. Number 2. Function of imagination. Coleridge emphasizes the role of imagination in poetry. For him, a poet doesn't just record reality but transform it through creative vision. Hence, poetic diction cannot be exactly the same as common man's language because the imaginative transformation makes it special. Number 3. Inconsistencies of Wordsworth's practice. Coleridge pointed out that Wordsworth himself did not always follow his own theory. In many of his poems, like Tenton Abbey or Intimations of Immorality, Wordsworth used sophisticated and poetic language, not rustic speech. This contradiction made Wordsworth's theory seem idealistic but impractical. To what extent is the poet different from the common man? Coleridge believed that a poet shares the same basic emotions as the common man but possesses higher faculties such as imagination, sensitivity, and insight. The poet has a deeper understanding of the world and can articulate feelings in ways that move and uplift readers. Therefore, while the poet is connected to the common man emotionally, his expression, thought, process, and creatively set him apart. In the conclusion, Coleridge's critique of Wordsworth's theory of poetic diction is both respectful and insightful. He agreed with the idea of making poetry more genuine and emotional, but he disagreed with limiting poetic language to rustic speech. For Coleridge, poetry is an art that requires more than just ordinary language. It demands the creative power of the poet's mind. Hence, the poet, while grounded in common humanity, is indeed a special figure elevated by imagination and expression. Now, in the question number 4, Eliot emphasizes the relationship between sound knowledge of history and good poetry. Discuss with T.S. Eliot essays to illustrate. T.S. Eliot, one of the most influential poets and critics of the 20th century, outlined his views on poetry and history in his famous essay Tradition and the Individual Talent in 1919. In the essay, Eliot asserts that a sound of knowledge of literary tradition and history is essential and poet aspiring to write great poetry. For Eliot, a poet does not work in isolation, rather every poet must understand their place in a continuum of literary tradition. In the main argument of the essay, Eliot essays discusses two key ideas: the concept of tradition in poetry, the role of the individual talent within that tradition. Let's examine how connect historical awareness to quality poetry. Number 1. Tradition and historical continuity. Eliot redefines tradition not to be blind imitation to the past but as a critical awareness of historical continuity in literature. He believes a good poet must know the entire past of literature, especially the European literary canon, to understand where they belong. Eliot writes the historical senses involves a perceptions not only of the pastness of the past but of its present. This means the past must be felt as living and active in the present. Implication: a poet who understands history can enrich their work with deeper meanings and resonance. Poetry becomes more universal and timeless when it connects past and present. Question number 2 point: the poet's mind and as a catalyst. Eliot uses a metaphor of the poet's mind being like a chemical catalyst. Just as platinum causes a reaction between chemicals without changing itself, the poet's personality should be interfere with the poem. What matters is how well the poet can merge historical knowledge with their own feelings and imagination to create impersonal poetry. Number 3. Modification of the past. Eliot makes a surprising point: when a new work of art is created, it alerts how we perceive past works. In this way, poetry is not only shaped by history but also reshapes it. The poet enters into a dialogue with the past, not merely copying it. Implication: a poet must observe the tradition and contribute something original that becomes part of that tradition. Number 4 point: impersonality and objectively in poetry. Eliot criticizes the romantic idea that poetry is the expression of emotion. For him, poetry should be objective and intellectual, drawing its strength and literary tradition and historical awareness. True poetry is not about the poet's emotion, but about the fusion of thought, feelings, and tradition. The role of history in good poetry. Eliot believes that without a deep understanding of historical literary work, a poet's writing will lack depth and richness. Good poetry involves consequences participation in the historical flow of literature. A poet must possess a historical mind and one that recognizes both changes and continuity in literature. T.S. Eliot, through tradition and individual talent, makes a strong case for the interdependence of history and poetry. He insists that no great poet can emerge without a sound knowledge of literary tradition. By learning from the past and contributing to it, poets become part of an ongoing culture conversation. Thus, history is not a burden for poet; it is a source of inspiration and identity. Now, question number 5 is: literary inevitably brings to surface the oppressive nature of structures like religion, family, and the state. How important is the writer's ideology in the context? Literature has often served as a mirror to society, revealing its deeper truths, especially to oppressive mechanisms within powerful institutions such as religion, family, and the state. Through fiction, drama, poetry, and essays, writers have explored how these structures control conditions and often exploit individuals. In the context, the ideology of the writer becomes crucial. It shapes what they choose to represent, how they portray power, and what kind of resistance they imagine. Understanding oppression in literature. Oppression manifests in many forms. Religion, used historically to legitimize patriarchy, caste, or obedience. Family, often portrayed as a site of patriarchal control and gender roles. State, symbol of law, surveillance, and control, especially in colonial, post-colonial, or totalitarian settings. Literature exposes how these institutions claim to offer stability but often restrict personal freedom and enforce confrontly and silence dissent. Why the writer ideologies matter? A writer ideologies standpoint, their beliefs, values, and political inclinations, influences, the themes they choose to explore, the character they create, whether they critique or support the status quo. Let's break this down. Number 1 point, writers as ideological beings. Every writer, consciously or unconsciously, worked from a particular ideology. A feminist writer like Virginia Woolf highlights gendered operations with family and society. A Marxist writers like Bertolt Brecht critique class exploitation under capitalism and the taste. A Dalit writer like Om Prakash Valmiki reveals caste oppression and religious hierarchies. Their ideology gives shape to what problems they see as central and what solutions or hopes they offer through their works. Number 2. Literature as political discourse. Even literature that appears apolitical can carry ideological weight. For example, a novel that romanticizes the nuclear family may ecologically reinforce patriarchy. A text that glorifies the nation state without questioning its executions, or, for example, of minorities of women, supports hegemonic nationalism. Third, silences in a literary text are as ideological and its statements. Number 3, ideology as a lens of resistance. Many writers use literature to challenge dominant ideologies. George Orwell's in 1984 critiqued the oppressive nature of the surveillance state. Arundhati Roy in The Gold of Small Things questions family, caste, and politics. Toni Morrison exposes racial oppressions and how it's abandoned in family and history. In all these cases, the writer's ideology becomes the force behind exposing and resisting oppressive structure. Number 4 is reader's interpretation and ideological framing. While the writer's ideology matters, so does the reader's ideology's lenses. A Marxist reader might focus on class struggle in a novel. A feminist reader might see how gender operates within the same text. So literature becomes a site of ideological struggle between writers, text, and reader. In the conclusion, the oppressive structure of religion, family, and the states have long been central themes in literature, but how these are portrayed and whether they are challenged or upheld depends heavily on the ideological stance of the writer. The writer's worldview informs that truths are revealed, but voices are centered, and what kind of revelation is imagined. In this way, the writer's ideology is not just important, it is often the very foundation of literary works' power to challenge oppression. I have covered the 5 question and answer, and from the question number 6, you can go through it, you can read it. I'm stopping here, and if you want, I'll cover all the questions by my speaking, so you can let me know in the comments. This is the question number 7, and this is the answer for it, question number 7. This is second point. Third point, challenging the male canon. Fourth point, literary theory meets social reality, cultural feminism and identity. And this is the conclusion. Question number 8, how is Orientalism and additional approaches to the understanding of literature trace its origin and applicability? So this is the introduction, this is the some points, this is the main points and important points, and in the end we have conclusion here. So I have covered this question paper from MEG-05 of last year 2024. So that's it from this video. If you want any other video, and so let me down in the comment below, I'll create that video very soon. Take care, bye bye, Jai Hind.